Andrew Mitchell never thought that silence in his own home could become a threat. 42 years old, head of the procurement department at a large company, he was used to solving problems through other people's hands: suppliers, contractors, logistics managers. At home, however, he was always the one who carried everything on his shoulders: repairs, bills, vacation plans, even choosing a school for his daughter once. He had decided that. Christine, his wife, rarely interfered in household matters. She preferred to take care of herself: fitness, salons, meetings with friends. Andrew didn't object. It seemed to him that this was how it should be. He earned, she maintained the comfort. At least, that's what he thought until that evening. It all started with small things, or rather, with how Christine latched on to these small things. "Mrs. Barnes, you hung the towel on the wrong hook again." His wife's voice rang out from the bathroom sharply, almost with fury. Andrew was sitting in the living room with a laptop on his knees, reviewing work correspondence, and flinched at that intonation. Christine had never been particularly warm with the governess, but she hadn't been rude either. Usually she kept her distance, politely cold. But now there was something new in her voice: anger, almost hatred. From the corridor came a quiet, guilty voice from Mrs. Barnes. "I'm sorry, Christine, I'll fix it right now." "And your coffee is too strong. I told you." Andrew looked up from the screen. Coffee? Seriously? Mrs. Barnes had been living with them for 7 years, since Liz turned 8. Back then, Andrew had met the old woman by chance. She was standing by the building entrance with a cardboard sign, "Looking for work, experience with children." Exhausted, in an old but clean coat, with an attentive and serious gaze, without a drop of self-pity. Andrew felt compassion. He offered her the position of governess. Christine wrinkled her nose but didn't object. She had just gotten tired of taking her daughter to school and sitting over homework. Margaret Barnes turned out to be a godsend. She became almost like a real grandmother to Liz, took her to school and picked her up, helped with math and literature, baked pies on Sundays, read to her at night. Liz adored her. Andrew also got used to the fact that there was always someone reliable in the house, calm, without unnecessary words. Mrs. Barnes never interfered where she shouldn't, didn't get involved in family quarrels, stayed in the shadows. But in recent days, something had changed. Christine seemed to be looking for a reason to lash out at the old woman. Andrew noticed, but attributed it to his wife's fatigue, maybe hormones, maybe stress. He didn't pay much attention to it. Until this evening. "Mom, why are you yelling?" came Liz's voice from her room. The girl looked out into the corridor, pursing her lips. At 15, she already knew how to look older: sharp, ironic, but vulnerable. Delicate features, long chestnut hair, a piercing gaze. "Mrs. Barnes has nothing to do with it." "Don't interfere," Christine cut her off. "Go do your homework." "My homework's done. And anyway, you've been kind of strange lately." "Liz, please," Andrew intervened, trying to speak calmly. "Your mother's right. Don't get involved." His daughter snorted and disappeared into her room, slamming the door. Andrew got up and went to the kitchen. Mrs. Barnes was standing at the sink, silently washing cups. Her back hunched, gray hair neatly tucked under a scarf. She wasn't complaining, wasn't defending herself. "Mrs. Barnes, don't pay attention," Andrew said quietly. "Christine's going through a difficult period right now." The old woman turned around. She looked at him with a long, studying gaze. Andrew suddenly felt uneasy. There was no offense in that look, but some kind of anxiety. "Mr. Mitchell," she said even quieter, almost in a whisper. "You're a good person, a very good person, and I'm grateful to you for these years." "What are you saying?" Andrew tried to smile. "That sounds like a goodbye." Mrs. Barnes didn't answer. She just nodded and returned to the dishes. The rest of the evening passed tensely. Christine locked herself in the bedroom. Liz sat in headphones. Andrew tried to finish reports. He sat with his laptop in the living room, That's how he fell asleep on the couch. But around 1 in the morning, a strange sensation woke him, as if someone was standing next to the couch. He opened his eyes. In the darkness, he made out a silhouette. Mrs. Barnes. She stood motionless, leaning toward him, and her lips moved soundlessly. Andrew shuddered, almost cried out. His pulse pounded in his temples. "Mrs. Barnes? What happened?" She put a finger to her lips. "Quiet." Then leaned even closer and whispered right in his ear. "You shouldn't sleep tonight. Otherwise, you won't wake up tomorrow." And without waiting for an answer, she silently left the room. Andrew sat on the couch, dumbfounded. What was that? Delirium? Had the old woman gone mad? Andrew lay back down, but sleep was gone. Mrs. Barnes's words spun in his head. "Otherwise, you won't wake up tomorrow." What nonsense. Maybe the old woman was developing dementia? Or was this some kind of metaphor? He lay like that for about 20 minutes, trying to convince himself that everything was fine. But the anxiety wouldn't let go. And then he heard footsteps. Quiet. Cautious. Someone came out of the bedroom. Andrew opened his eyes slightly. Christine. She was barefoot, in a robe, sneaking down the corridor. Where was she going? He waited a few seconds, then silently got up and followed her. Christine went into the bathroom at the end of the corridor and pulled the door closed, but didn't close it all the way. Andrew crept closer, pressed against the wall. From behind the door came his wife's muffled voice. She was talking on the phone. "Yes, I'm telling you. Tonight specifically. Tomorrow he's going on a business trip, understand? Different things can happen on the road." Andrew froze. The blood drained from his face. "The brakes need to be damaged tonight," Christine continued quietly but distinctly. "Otherwise, we won't have time. He's leaving early in the morning, around 7, on the highway. Well, you understand. The main thing is that it looks like an accident." A pause. "No, he doesn't suspect anything. Sleeping like the dead. Glenn, I'm serious. This is our chance. The house will remain mine, the insurance too. And we can be together." Another pause, then a chuckle. "You think I'm not scared?" "Of course I'm scared. But I've already decided. You promised it would be clean, that no one would find out." Andrew leaned against the wall, feeling his legs giving way. His own wife. His Christine. The one he had lived with for 17 years. The mother of his daughter. She was discussing his murder, brakes, business trip. Different things can happen. Christine was saying something else into the phone, but Andrew was no longer listening. He slowly backed into the darkness of the corridor, returned, sat on the couch. This was impossible. This was delirium. This was a dream. But no, this was reality. Mrs. Barnes knew. She had somehow found out, and warned him. A few minutes later, Christine returned, lay down on the bed in the bedroom, as if nothing had happened. Andrew lay motionless, staring at the ceiling. Fragments of thoughts raced through his head. Glenn. Who was he? A lover? An accomplice? How long had this been going on? Why hadn't he noticed? And most importantly, what to do? Run? Where? To whom? To the police? With what? A story about an overheard conversation? No evidence. They'd consider him paranoid. Stay silent? Go on the business trip and risk his life? No. He needed to act, but carefully. He remembered Mrs. Barnes's words. Otherwise, you won't wake up tomorrow. She had saved his life, simply by warning him. Andrew slowly exhaled. Good. So tomorrow morning he would pretend nothing had happened. Say the business trip was canceled. Buy time. Find a way to protect himself and learn the truth. The whole truth. Because if Christine was capable of this, it meant he didn't know at all who he had been living with all these years. Dawn came slowly. Andrew never closed his eyes. He lay and tried to understand. When did it all start? When did Christine stop being the woman he loved? Or had she never been her? A year ago she had talked about divorce. Then it sounded sudden, like a blow to the gut. They were sitting in the kitchen. She was drinking coffee and suddenly said, "Andrew, we need to talk. I want a divorce." He was taken aback, asked why. She shrugged. "I'm bored. I'm tired. I want to live differently." Then she added that their daughter would stay with her, that they would divide the house, that she had a right to half. Andrew had begged then, pleaded not to destroy the family, promised to change, spend more time at home, work less. Christine listened silently, then nodded. "Okay, let's try again." He was glad, decided that everything would work out, tried to be more attentive, spend more time with his daughter, gave his wife flowers. But something in Christine had changed. She became colder, more distant. Left home more often, to the gym, to see friends, shopping. Andrew didn't interfere, thought she just needed space. Now he understood. All this time she had been preparing to leave. But not just leave, to take everything. And for that, he had to disappear. He remembered how Christine had mentioned the house in the conversation. She was wrong. The house was built with his money before the marriage. In a divorce, she would get at most half of what was jointly acquired during the marriage, but she had no rights to the house. But if he died, then everything would pass to her and their daughter. Insurance, inheritance, everything. And she would marry this Glenn, live a new life, with his money. No, this wouldn't happen. He waited until the sky lightened outside the window. 6 a.m. Christine was still sleeping. Andrew got up, got dressed, left the living room. In the corridor, he ran into Mrs. Barnes. She was already dressed, standing by the window looking at the street. "Mrs. Barnes," he called quietly. She turned around. Her eyes were full of worry. You're all right," she exhaled. "Thanks to you." Andrew came closer. "How did you know?" The old woman was silent for a moment, then answered, "I heard a conversation. Yesterday afternoon. Christine was talking on the phone in the garden. She thought I was in the house, but I had gone out for laundry. I heard fragments, about breaks, about a business trip. I didn't understand right away. Then I put it all together. Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "I was afraid of being wrong, afraid I'd be misunderstood, that you wouldn't believe me. So I decided to at least warn you." Andrew nodded. He understood. Such things are hard to believe, even hearing with your own ears. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "You saved my life." "What will you do?" asked Mrs. Barnes. "I don't know, but I'm not going on this business trip, and I'll find out everything." He went downstairs, made coffee. When Christine appeared in the kitchen, he was already sitting at the table with a cup in his hands. "Good morning," she said, smiling tensely. "Are you packed already?" "No," Andrew answered calmly. "The business trip was canceled." Christine's face froze for a second. Then she blinked. "How canceled?" "They called late last night. The supplier postponed the meeting to next week, so I'm not going." Christine stood, looking at him. Something like panic flashed in her eyes. Then she pulled herself together. "Well, good. So you'll stay with us?" "Yes," Andrew nodded. "I'll stay." He got up, started getting ready. "Where are you going?" Christine asked. "To work, by taxi. I'll leave the car here." This was a lie, but Christine didn't know. Andrew went outside, called a taxi, and left. And in his head, a plan was already forming. He needed evidence, he needed help, and he needed time, because the hunt had only just begun. But now he knew who was the victim and who was the predator. Andrew sat in the taxi and looked out the window, not seeing the streets rushing by. The driver was talking about something, traffic jams, weather, but the words didn't register. One thought spun in his head. His wife wanted to kill him. Not just leave, not just divorce, kill. Physically eliminate him. To take the house, the money, the insurance. 17 years of marriage. 17 years he thought he knew this person, that they were a family. But it turned out that Christine was capable of this. Capable of planning his death, discussing details with her lover, smiling in his face, and wishing him good night. The taxi stopped at an office building. Andrew paid, got out, went up to the 4th floor. In the procurement department, he was greeted as usual. Colleagues nodded, said hello, someone joked about the business trip. Andrew joked back, pretended everything was fine, but inside, it was empty. He went into the director's office and said that the business trip was canceled, and starting tomorrow he needed time off for family circumstances. Then he went to his office, sat at his desk, opened the computer, and started searching. Private Detective Boston. Dozens of websites, ads, reviews. Andrew read carefully, choosing. He needed a professional. Not a charlatan, not an adventurer. A person who knew how to work cleanly, legally, and without unnecessary noise. Half an hour later, he settled on one name. Stephen Melford. Former operative, 20 years of experience in criminal investigation, now private practice. Reviews were restrained but positive. Works quickly, doesn't take questionable cases, keeps his word. Andrew dialed the number. Listening, came a low, calm voice. Stephen Melford? Yes. My name is Andrew Mitchell. I need help. Personal, delicate. Can we meet today? A pause. I have time after 6 today. Let's meet at a cafe. Write down the address. Andrew wrote it down. A cafe on the outskirts, a quiet place. Meeting scheduled for 7 in the evening. The day dragged on painfully slowly. Andrew tried to work, but his thoughts kept returning home. What was Christine doing now? Was she calling Glenn? Was she panicking because the business trip fell through? Or was she already coming up with a new plan? He remembered her face this morning when he announced the news. It wasn't disappointment. It was anger, annoyance, as if an important deal had fallen through. At 6 o'clock, Andrew left the office, took the subway to the right station, found the cafe. Stephen Melford was already sitting at a corner table, a man about 50, medium height, with a crew cut and an attentive gaze. Dressed simply, jeans, dark jacket, no frills. Andrew, he clarified when Mitchell approached. Yes. Sit down. Coffee? No, thank you. Melford nodded, signaled the waiter, ordered himself an espresso, then looked at Andrew. So, what happened? Andrew was silent, gathering his thoughts. Then he began to tell, slowly, methodically, about how Mrs. Barnes warned him at night, about how he overheard Christine's conversation in the bathroom, about the breaks, the business trip, the insurance, about canceling the trip and now not knowing what to do next. Melford listened silently, without interrupting, only occasionally nodded. When Andrew finished, the detective asked, I see. Are you absolutely sure about what you heard? Maybe it was a joke, a conversation about a movie, a misunderstanding. No, Andrew answered firmly. I heard clearly. She named a name, Glenn. Talked about breaks, about the business trip, about how the house would remain hers. All right, so this is serious. Now tell me, do you want to stop her or punish her? Andrew thought. I want to protect myself, and I want her to be held accountable, but legally, without dirt. Melford smiled. Right approach. Then we work like this. I establish surveillance on your wife, record her movements, contacts, meetings, collect information about her social circle first of all, about this Glenn, everything that can be used in court. How long will it take? Depends on the subject's activity. If she acts cautiously, a week or 2. If she's nervous and makes mistakes, faster. And the car? The brakes? They could have been damaged. We'll check that first. Where's the car now? At home. I left it in the garage. Excellent. I'll arrange an inspection tonight, unofficially through a mechanic friend. If we find evidence of tampering, that's already proof. Then we can involve the police. Andrew nodded. For the first time all day, he felt he wasn't alone, that there was a plan. What should I do? He asked. Act natural. Don't show your wife that you know anything. Don't make scenes. Don't pressure her. Your task is to give her the opportunity to lose vigilance and act, and mine is to record everything. And if she tries again? She will try, so be careful. Don't drive the car until it's checked. Don't eat or drink anything that only she prepares. Don't be alone with her in dangerous situations. No need to be paranoid, but vigilance is mandatory. Andrew felt a chill in his chest. So now his own home was a battlefield. One more thing, Melford added. Your daughter. How old is she? 15. She shouldn't know anything, for now. This will protect her psychologically and prevent her from accidentally letting something slip. She already feels that something's wrong in the family. Smart girl. Then tell her you and your wife are going through a difficult period. That a divorce is possible, but nothing more. Not a word about the murder attempt. Andrew agreed. Liz was already suffering enough. To learn that her mother was planning her father's murder, that would break her. They agreed on details, fee, deadlines, communication methods. Andrew transferred the advance immediately. I'll start tomorrow morning, the detective said in parting. I'll be in touch, and remember, the main thing now is calm. Don't let emotions take over. Andrew shook his hand and went outside. Evening was falling. The city was lighting up. People were hurrying about their business, laughing, talking on phones. Ordinary life. And his had collapsed. He caught a taxi, headed home. On the way, Christine called. Where are you? Dinner's getting cold. On my way. Got held up at work. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Okay. Liz was asking when you'd be back. Her voice was normal, even affectionate, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't been discussing how to kill him last night. The taxi stopped at the house. Andrew got out, opened the gate, walked to the door. The windows were lit. Something smelled delicious. Mrs. Barnes had apparently made dinner. He entered. In the hallway, Liz met him. Dad? Hi? Why do you look so sad? Tired, sweetheart, he answered, hugging his daughter. It was a tough work day. I see. Well, go wash your hands. Dinner's ready. Andrew went to the bathroom, washed up, looked at himself in the mirror. His face was haggard, eyes red from lack of sleep. He looked 50, though he was only 42. At dinner, Christine was animated, talked about some meeting with a friend, about new cosmetics, about plans for the weekend. Liz listened half-heartedly, picking at her potatoes with a fork. Mrs. Barnes silently drank tea. Andrew ate mechanically, not tasting the food. All the time he caught the old woman's gaze. She looked at him with anxiety and sympathy. After dinner, Christine went to the bedroom. Liz locked herself in her room with textbooks. Andrew stayed in the kitchen with Mrs. Barnes. Have you decided something? She asked quietly, washing dishes. Yes. I hired someone. He'll watch Christine, collect evidence. And then what? Police, court, divorce. Mrs. Barnes sighed. Poor little Liz. How will she survive all this? I don't know, Andrew admitted honestly. But it's better this way than losing a father. The old woman nodded, then added, I'll be there. With her. Whatever happens. Thank you, Mrs. Barnes. You're family to us. The old woman's eyes moistened. She wiped away a tear and went back to the dishes. Andrew went up to the bedroom. Christine was lying on the bed with a tablet, scrolling through something. Seeing him, she smiled. You're early today. Usually you sit at the computer until 11. Tired, he answered shortly. I'll go to bed early. Maybe we can watch a movie together? She suggested, patting the bed next to her. Andrew felt cold. Sit next to her, pretend everything was fine, while she was making plans to kill him? Not today. I have a headache. Christine shrugged. As you wish. He undressed, lay on his side of the bed, turned to the wall. Christine fiddled with the tablet for a while longer, then turned off the light and settled in comfortably. Good night, she said. Andrew was silent. He lay in the darkness, listening to her breathing. It was even, calm. She fell asleep quickly. Conscience apparently wasn't bothering her. And Andrew couldn't sleep. He thought about how quickly everything had changed. Just yesterday, he was an ordinary person with an ordinary family. And today, a victim of an assassination attempt, a private detective's client, husband of a would-be murderess. No, not a murderess. Not yet. But if it weren't for Mrs. Barnes, he remembered her words. Otherwise, you won't wake up tomorrow. She saved him, simply by warning. Without unnecessary questions, without hesitation. The next morning, he woke before everyone else. Got dressed, went downstairs to the kitchen, made coffee. At 7 o'clock, Melford called. Good morning. There's news. What? Your car. My guy who inspected it late last night in your garage found out. The brake system is damaged. The lines are partially cut. Not immediately noticeable, but at the first braking at speed they would have burst. You wouldn't have been able to stop. Andrew paled. So it was true. This wasn't just talk. Christine and Glenn really tried to kill him. What next? He asked hoarsely. Next, I document this officially. Photos, video, expert opinion. Then I set up surveillance on your wife. Is she going anywhere today? Usually on Tuesdays she goes to Champion Fitness Gym. Perfect. I'll be there. Andrew ended the conversation and sat on a chair. His hands were trembling. He imagined how he could have been driving on the highway, pressed the brakes, and realized they weren't working. Speed, turn, cliff. He would have been gone, and Christine would have gotten everything. He closed his eyes. No, this wouldn't happen. He was alive, and he would fight. At 8:30, Christine came downstairs, already in workout clothes. I'm going to the gym. I'll be back by lunch. Are you going to work? No. This week I'm working remotely. Andrew nodded without looking up from his tablet. She left. Andrew waited a few minutes, then called Melford. She left. Got it. Andrew exhaled. Now he just had to wait. Liz appeared in the kitchen, sleepy and displeased. Dad, where's Mom? At the gym. Again? Does she live there now? Andrew was silent. Liz sat at the table, took a sandwich. Dad, did something happen between you two? Why do you ask? Well, you're kind of distant. And Mom's strange too. Are you fighting? Andrew looked at his daughter. She was looking at him seriously, like an adult. Smart girl. Too smart for her age. Liz, he said carefully, your mother and I are going through a difficult period right now. We might live separately. Liz's face paled. You're getting divorced? I don't know. Maybe. Why? It's hard to explain. Adult things. Liz threw the sandwich on the plate. I'm not a child. I'm 15. I have a right to know. Liz, no, you always do this. Hide everything, pretend everything's fine, and then bam, divorce. She jumped up and ran to her room, slammed the door. Andrew sat, staring into space. Mrs. Barnes, standing at the stove, said quietly, Don't blame yourself. She'll get through it. Children are stronger than we think. I hope so, Andrew answered dully. He spent the whole day at home. Christine returned at 2 o'clock, cheerful and rosy. Sat down to lunch, chatted about the workout, about the new instructor, about what good weather. Andrew listened and thought, she's lying. Every word is a lie. She wasn't at the gym, she was with Glenn. In the evening, Melford called. There's something interesting. Tell me. Your wife went to a cafe on Commonwealth Avenue after the gym. Met a man there, 40 years old, athletic build, expensive clothes, SUV. I ran the plates. The car is registered to Glenn Brennan, owner of a chain of fitness clubs. So that's him. Looks like it. They sat for an hour and a half, talked. I got it all on camera, photos, video. Then they left, got in his car and drove out of town, to a cottage. I didn't follow further. Too conspicuous. But the fact of the meeting is recorded. Good. What next? Next, I collect information about Brennan. Who he is, what he does, what his reputation is. And I continue surveillance. If they meet regularly, it means the relationship is serious. And the breaks? The expert examination? Already done. Damage is intentional, done recently, most likely the night before your business trip. This can be used as evidence. Thank you. Continue. Andrew ended the conversation and decided it was time to move to the next step. Time to involve the police. The next few days passed in a strange, almost surreal mode. Andrew continued to live as usual, and all this time, he was living a double life inside. On the outside, a calm husband and father. Inside, a man who knew his wife was planning murder and was collecting evidence. Melford worked precisely and professionally. Every evening he sent reports, photographs, video recordings, dry facts. Christine met with Glenn Brennan 3 times in a week, always at the same cafe then, a trip to the cottage or to a hotel. The detective recorded the time, routes, even the taxi numbers she sometimes used. Andrew looked at these photographs and didn't recognize his wife. In the pictures, Christine smiled, laughed, hugged this Glenn. She looked happy, the way she hadn't looked next to him in a long time. It hurt. He remembered how they met. Christine had worked as an administrator in a beauty salon then, was bright, energetic, cheerful. Andrew fell in love immediately. Courted for 6 months, gave flowers, took her to theaters and restaurants. She agreed to marry him if he built a house, said she wanted stability, certainty about tomorrow. He gave her all that. A house, prosperity, the opportunity not to work. Liz was born, and Christine completely devoted herself to her daughter. Well, the first years. Then the child grew up, went to school, and Christine got bored. A year ago, when she talked about divorce, Andrew attributed it to a midlife crisis. Thought it would pass. But now he understood. That was the beginning. She was already seeing Glenn then. Melford sent him a dossier on Brennan. 40 years old, unmarried, owner of a chain of 5 fitness clubs and 2 spa salons. Good income, business connections, reputation as a ladies' man. Married 3 times, divorced 3 times. No children. Lives alone in a large cottage outside the city. A typical predator, Andrew thought. Hunts other people's wives, promises golden mountains, then strips them bare and leaves. But Christine didn't see this, or didn't want to see. She fell in love. Really fell in love. The way she once, perhaps, loved Andrew. Or maybe even more. And for the sake of this love, she was ready for anything. On Friday evening, Andrew met with Melford again. This time the detective brought a whole folder of materials, printouts of photographs, meeting schedules, metadata from phone conversations, without content. The picture is coming together, Melford said, spreading documents on the table. Your wife meets with Brennan regularly, at least 3 times a week. The relationship is clearly not platonic. Judging by the time they spend together, this is a serious connection, not just an affair. And what about the plans? Andrew asked. Did they discuss me? I didn't hear directly. For wiretapping, we need a court order, and we don't have one yet. But there are indirect signs. Yesterday, for example, they met at the cottage. I couldn't get close, but I saw through the window. They were arguing about something. Christine was agitated, waving her arms. Brennan was calming her. Probably because the business trip fell through. Most likely. They clearly expected a different development of events. Andrew nodded. He already knew this. But hearing confirmation was hard. What next? He asked. Next, the police. We have enough material to file a complaint. The fact of brake damage, the fact of infidelity, circumstantial evidence of planning a crime. That's enough to start an official investigation. And if they refuse to open a case? They won't refuse. Attempted murder is serious, especially with physical evidence. Your car is direct confirmation of intent. Andrew thought. Police. Investigation. This meant publicity. This meant Liz would learn the truth, that everyone would know. But there was no choice. All right, he said. Let's go to the police. When? Tomorrow. I'll arrange a meeting with an investigator I trust. Anna Walters, captain, Major Crimes Division. Smart, principled, doesn't fall for tears and manipulation. She'll figure it out. The next day, Andrew went to the district police station. Melford was already waiting for him at the entrance. Ready? The detective asked. Yes. They went up to the third floor, walked down the corridor, entered an office with a sign, Captain A. Walters. Behind the desk sat a woman about 35, in a strict suit, with short dark hair and an attentive gaze. She stood up, greeted. Andrew Mitchell? Yes. Have a seat. Stephen briefed me on the situation, but I want to hear from you personally. Andrew sat and began to tell. Again, from the beginning. About Mrs. Barnes's warning, about Christine's night conversation, about the damaged brakes, about Glenn Brennan, about the meetings and plans. Walters listened attentively. When Andrew finished, she asked, I see. Are you absolutely sure that you heard a conversation about an attempt on your life? You couldn't have misunderstood or been mistaken? No, Andrew answered firmly. She mentioned my name, said I was going on a business trip, mentioned the house and insurance. It was a conversation about me. All right. Second, your car's brake system. Was it examined by a specialist? Melford laid a folder with photographs and an expert opinion on the table. Yes. Here are the documents. The lines were cut intentionally. The damage is fresh. Walters carefully studied the papers, then nodded. This is serious evidence. Third, does your wife know that you're aware of her plans? No, I'm acting as usual. Excellent. That will give us time. Now I'll process the complaint, start the investigation. We'll establish official surveillance on your wife and her lover, try to record their conversations. For this, I need court permission for wiretapping. It'll take a few days. What should I do? Nothing. Live as usual. Don't provoke your wife. Don't give her reason to suspect you know something. Your task is to give her the opportunity to lose vigilance and act, and mine is to record everything. And if she tries again? She will try, so be careful. Don't drive the car, don't eat or drink anything that only she prepares. Don't be alone with her in dangerous situations. No need to be paranoid, but vigilance is mandatory. Andrew nodded. This was the same advice Melford had given. One more thing, Walters added. Your daughter. She'll have to testify if the case goes to trial. She doesn't know anything. Then don't tell her for now, but be prepared that sooner or later she'll find out, and it will be hard. Andrew knew. He feared this moment most of all. They spent another hour in the office, processing documents, giving testimony, signing papers. When everything was done, Walters walked them to the door. I'll contact you as soon as there's progress, and for now, hang in there. Andrew went outside and took a deep breath. The first step was taken. Now this was an official investigation. Now Christine and Glenn were under surveillance. He returned home in the evening. Christine was sitting in the living room, leafing through a magazine. Seeing him, she smiled. How are things? Fine. Tired. Go rest. Dinner will be ready in half an hour. Andrew went up to the bedroom, lay on the bed, closed his eyes. Thoughts spun in his head. How long would the investigation last? What would happen when Christine was arrested? How would Liz survive this? He imagined the moment when his daughter would learn the truth. Imagined her face. Shock, pain, incomprehension. She loved her mother. Despite everything, despite Christine's coldness recently, Liz loved her, and that love would shatter. Dinner passed quietly. Liz was thoughtful, Christine cheerful, Mrs. Barnes silent. Andrew hardly ate, just pretended. After dinner, Christine went to the bedroom, Liz to her room. Andrew stayed in the kitchen. Mrs. Barnes washed dishes. "Mr. Mitchell," the old woman said quietly, "were you at the police station?" He looked at her in surprise. "How do you know?" "I saw you leave, with that man, and everything's clear from your face." Andrew sighed. "Yes, I was. Filed a complaint. Now they'll watch Christine, collect evidence. And then what? Arrest, trial, prison." Mrs. Barnes shook her head. "Poor little Liz. How hard it will be for her." "I know, but I can't do it any other way. If I stay silent, Christine will try again, and next time I might not be lucky." "You're right," the old woman agreed. "You're doing the right thing. It's just sorry for the girl." Andrew nodded. He felt sorry too. But there was no choice. On Monday morning, the detective called. "Mitchell, we have news. Yesterday evening, your wife met with Brennan. I found out that the investigation installed a wiretap. The court gave permission. They recorded the conversation." "And what's there?" Andrew felt his pulse quicken. "They discussed you. Specifically, what to do next, since the business trip fell through. Brennan suggested arranging an accident at home. Your wife hesitated at first, then agreed." Andrew felt cold inside. "So they're planning a new attempt?" "Yes, but now the police know about it. We'll be ready. The main thing is don't panic. You'll be under protection." "When are they planning to act?" "They didn't name an exact date, but judging by the conversation, in the next few days. So be as careful as possible. Don't eat anything that only your wife prepares. Don't be alone with her. And keep your phone with you. If something happens, call the investigator immediately." Andrew promised and hung up. His hands were shaking. So this was continuing. Christine hadn't backed down. She was just looking for another way. He looked at the calendar. Monday, the 23rd. In a week, the end of the month. How much time did he have? A day? 2? In the evening, Christine left again, for the gym. Andrew knew it was a lie. She went to Glenn, to discuss details. He sat at home, tried to read, but couldn't concentrate. Liz did homework. Mrs. Barnes knitted in the living room. An ordinary evening. But Andrew felt this was the calm before the storm. On Wednesday, the detective called again. "Mitchell, they're meeting tomorrow. In Brennan's car, in a shopping center parking lot. The police will be nearby, will make a recording. If they discuss specific plans, they'll arrest them immediately." "All right," Andrew exhaled. "I'll wait." Thursday dragged on endlessly. At 6 in the evening, Christine said she was going to the store, took her bag, left. Andrew sat at home, clutching his phone, waited for a call. At 7:30, the phone rang. The detective. "Mitchell, there's news. We recorded the conversation. They discussed how to arrange an accident for you, push you down the stairs or arrange a gas leak. This is direct intent to murder. They're being detained now." Andrew closed his eyes. That's it. This is the end. "Thank you," was all he could say. "Hang in there. It'll all be over soon." Andrew sank onto the couch. Liz came out of her room. "Dad, why are you so pale?" "Liz, sit down," he said quietly. "We need to talk." His daughter became alert. "What happened?" "The police are coming now. They're arresting Mom." Liz's face contorted. "What? For what?" Andrew took a deep breath. "Your mother. She wanted to kill me. Together with her lover. Was planning an accident. The police recorded everything." Liz was silent. She looked at her father with wide eyes, then slowly shook her head. "No, that's not true. You're lying." "Liz, you're lying," she screamed. "Mom couldn't. She's not like that." And ran to her room. Andrew sat, unable to move. Mrs. Barnes came up, put her hand on his shoulder. "She'll understand." She just needs time. An hour later, the police arrested Christine, along with her lover, at the scene of crime planning. The hunt was over. The first night after Christine's arrest was the hardest in Andrew's life. He didn't sleep, sat in the kitchen, and looked out the window. The house was dead silent. Liz locked herself in her room and didn't respond to knocking. Mrs. Barnes went to her room, unable to help with anything. Andrew replayed the events of recent weeks in his head. How quickly everything had changed. How his life had collapsed. He thought he knew Christine, thought they had a family, albeit not perfect. But it turned out, everything was a lie. Years of lies. Friday morning he was summoned by Walters. When he entered the investigator's office, she asked, "How are you?" "Bad," Andrew answered honestly. "My daughter won't talk to me. She thinks I betrayed her mother. She'll learn the truth. When the case goes to trial, all the evidence will be presented. Recordings of conversations, break examination, witness testimony. She'll understand." "I hope so," Walters continued. "I need to take additional testimony from you. Detailed. Everything you remember, all the events after the first conversation with me. Every detail is important." Andrew nodded and began to tell. He spoke for the record, for the court, for the case that was supposed to lock Christine and Glenn Brennan in prison. Walters recorded, without interrupting. Sometimes she clarified details. Time, place, intonation. When Andrew finished, the investigator said, "Good. Now about Brennan. He was also detained yesterday evening. Now both are in the detention center. Tomorrow, there will be an interrogation." "What are they saying? Do they confess?" "Brennan is silent," demands a lawyer. "Your wife, on the contrary, is talkative, trying to blame everything on her lover. Says he forced her, that she was afraid to refuse, that she would never have decided on her own." Andrew smiled bitterly. "She's lying. I heard her voice that night. She wasn't afraid. She was confident." "I know. We have recordings. Her testimony doesn't match the facts. This will play against her in court." The investigator poured herself water from a carafe into a glass, then continued. "Mitchell, you did everything right. I know it's hard now. But if you had stayed silent, you wouldn't be alive. And your daughter would have remained with a murderous mother." Andrew nodded. He understood this with his mind. But his heart still ached. After leaving Walters, he returned home, went up to Liz's room, knocked quietly. "Honey, can I come in?" Silence. "Liz, please. I need to talk to you." Another minute of silence. Then the lock clicked. The door opened slightly. Liz stood on the threshold, pale, with red eyes, hair disheveled. She hadn't slept all night, that was obvious. "What do you want?" she asked dully. "To talk. To explain." "There's nothing to explain. You turned Mom into the police. She's in jail now." "Liz, she wanted to kill me. The police have evidence." "I don't believe it." "Liz, I don't believe it," the girl repeated louder. "Mom couldn't have done that. She's not a murderer." Andrew took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "All right, then come with me to the garage. I'll show you something." Liz became alert. "What?" "You'll see." They went downstairs, went outside, walked to the garage. Andrew opened the door, turned on the light. The car stood in place. He hadn't touched it since the inspection. "Look," he said, leading his daughter to the front wheel. He squatted down, showed the brake line. "See this cut? It was made on purpose. At night before my business trip. If I had gone, the brakes would have failed at speed. I would have died." Liz was silent, looking at the damaged line. Her face was stone. "Experts confirmed," Andrew continued. "This isn't wear, not an accident. This is intent. Someone wanted to kill me." "Maybe it was. Thieves? Or hooligans?" "Liz, don't make things up. You're a smart girl. You know the truth yourself." His daughter turned away. Her shoulders shook. She was crying, quietly, restrainedly, but tears flowed down her cheeks. Andrew hugged her. She didn't resist, just stood, her face buried in his chest. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did Mom do this? She loved you." "I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know." They stood like that for several minutes. Then Liz pulled away, wiped her tears. "I want to see her. Talk to her." "Not possible yet. The investigation is still ongoing. But later maybe." Liz nodded and returned to the house. Andrew stayed in the garage, looking at the car. This car was supposed to become his coffin. If it weren't for Mrs. Barnes, he remembered the old woman. She saved his life, simply by warning, not demanding anything in return, risking that she wouldn't be believed. Andrew returned to the house, found Mrs. Barnes in the kitchen. She was peeling vegetables for soup. "Mrs. Barnes," he called. The old woman turned. "Yes, Mr. Mitchell?" "Thank you. For everything. You saved my life." Her eyes filled with tears. "Nothing to thank me for. I just couldn't stay silent. You're a good person. You took me in when I had nowhere to go. Gave me shelter, work, family. I couldn't let anything happen to you." Andrew hugged her, carefully, like a son. "You'll stay with us," he said. "Whatever happens. You're part of this family. Forever." Mrs. Barnes nodded, unable to speak. The next day, Glenn Brennan's interrogation took place. Tall, athletic, with a confident gait and an arrogant expression. Dressed in a tracksuit, hair neatly styled. Even in the detention center, he managed to look well-groomed. Brennan sat at the table. Walters took a seat opposite, turned on the recorder. Glenn Brennan, 40 years old, detained on suspicion of preparing for murder. "You have the right to a lawyer." "My lawyer is already on his way," Brennan answered dryly. "Until he arrives, I won't say anything." "All right, then just listen." Walters turned on the recording. From the speaker came Christine's voice. "Glenn, I'm scared. What if something goes wrong?" Brennan's voice, calm, confident. "Nothing will go wrong. We'll think everything through. An accident at home. No one will prove anything." A pause. Then Christine again. "And if he survives? What if he refuses, like the business trip? And it turns out again that you damaged the brakes for nothing?" "He won't survive. We'll prepare everything carefully." The recording cut off. Walters turned off the recorder and looked at Brennan. "Is that your voice?" Brennan paled, his jaws clenched. No comment. "We have more recordings, where you discuss other ways to kill Andrew Mitchell. Gas leak, fall down the stairs. Everything is recorded. Everything with your participation." "I'm waiting for my lawyer." Walters nodded. "Wait, but no, there's enough evidence for a conviction. Your lover is already giving testimony. Says it was all your idea. That you forced her. That you were the organizer of the crime." Brennan's face twisted. "She's lying. She's the one who talked me into it. She wanted to get rid of her husband, take the house and money. I just loved her." "So you admit to participating in planning the murder?" Brennan stopped short, realized he had said too much. Fell silent, turned away. Walters smiled. "Thank you. That's enough." She got up, left the office. The next days passed in tense waiting. The investigation continued. Interrogations, examinations, collection of witness testimony. Andrew gave testimony twice, Mrs. Barnes once. Melford was also called as a witness. He talked about the surveillance, provided photographs and video recordings. At home, the atmosphere remained heavy. Liz hardly talked, walked like a shadow. Ate little, lost weight, looked haggard. Andrew tried to support her, but she withdrew. The only person she went to was Mrs. Barnes. The old woman hugged her, stroked her head, said nothing, just was there. One evening, when Andrew was passing by Liz's room, he heard a conversation. "Grandma Maggie, why did Mom do this?" Liz asked quietly, in a choked voice. "I don't know, dear. People sometimes do strange things, lose their heads from love, from fear, from greed. But she's Mom. She should have loved Dad, loved me. She loved, in her own way. It's just, her love turned out not to be strong enough to keep her from evil. I hate her. Don't say that. Hatred is a bad feeling. It destroys from within. Better just let go. Accept what happened and live on. Liz cried. Andrew stepped away from the door, not wanting to eavesdrop. But his chest felt warmer. Mrs. Barnes was doing what he couldn't, comforting his daughter, giving her support. A month later, the case was sent to court. On the appointed day, he came to court. He didn't take Liz. She herself refused to go, said she didn't want to see her mother. The courtroom was small, austere. Andrew sat on the bench for victims. Opposite, the defendant's bench. A few minutes later, Christine and Glenn Brennan were brought there. Andrew saw his wife for the first time since the arrest. She had changed, lost weight, her hair had dulled, her face looked haggard. Dressed simply, no makeup, no jewelry. She looked for him with her eyes, found him, looked directly into his eyes. There was no remorse in her gaze, only anger. The judge entered, the session began. They read the charges: preparation for murder, conspiracy. Christine and Brennan pleaded partially guilty, said they were planning but didn't intend to follow through. But recordings, examinations, witness testimony said otherwise. The trial lasted 3 hours. Interrogation protocols were read, audio recordings were played, photographs of the damaged brakes were shown. Andrew sat and listened. Listened to how they dissected his family life piece by piece, how they read Christine's correspondence with her lover, how they described their plans to kill him. It was humiliating, painful, but necessary. At the end of the session, the judge retired to deliberate. Returned half an hour later and announced the verdict. Christine Mitchell and Glenn Brennan are found guilty of preparation for murder by prior conspiracy, sentenced to 7 years of imprisonment each. The sentence to be served in a general regime correctional colony. The gavel struck the table. Christine cried out, tried to say something, but the guards were already leading her away. Brennan walked silently, with a stone face. Andrew sat, watching them leave. It was over. The trial had taken place. Justice had prevailed. But why was there such emptiness inside? After the verdict was announced, Andrew left the courthouse and stopped on the steps. Cold wind ruffled the hem of his coat. Gray clouds covered the sky. People hurried past, bundled in jackets. No one paid attention to him. An ordinary day for the city. But for Andrew Mitchell, this day became a boundary between past and future. 7 years. Christine would spend 7 years behind bars. By that time, Liz would be 22. She would finish high school, university, become an adult. All of this, without a mother. Andrew took out his phone, called home. Mrs. Barnes answered. "Mr. Mitchell?" "Yes, it's over. The verdict. 7 years each." The old woman was silent for a few seconds, then quietly exhaled. "Lord, well, maybe it's for the best. At least there's closure. How's Liz?" "Sitting in her room. Hasn't come out all day. I offered lunch. She refused. I'm coming now. I'll try to talk to her." Andrew caught a taxi and headed home. On the way, he looked out the window, trying to collect his thoughts. What would he say to his daughter? How to explain that her mother was a criminal, convicted of attempted murder? How could one explain such a thing to a child at all? At home, it was quiet. Mrs. Barnes met him in the hallway, looking worriedly toward the stairs. Not a sound from her. She's not even playing music, just lying there. Andrew nodded, went upstairs, knocked on Liz's door. "Honey, it's me. Can I come in?" Silence. Then dully, "Come in." He entered. Liz was lying on the bed, turned to the wall. The room was half dark, curtains drawn, light not on. Andrew sat on the edge of the bed. "The trial's over. Mom got 7 years. Liz didn't answer. Only her shoulders trembled. Liz, I understand how hard this is for you. But you don't understand anything, she interrupted, still not turning around. You can't understand. This is my mom. I loved her, and now she's in prison. Because of you. Andrew sighed heavily, restraining himself. Not because of me, because of her own actions. She tried to kill me, Liz. Kill your father. If she had succeeded, I wouldn't be here now. Think about that. Liz turned over, looked at him. Her eyes were red, face swollen from tears. Maybe it would have been better that way. The words hit harder than a slap. Andrew paled. Liz! Leave, she said, turning back. Just leave. Andrew sat for another minute, then quietly got up and left. Behind the door, Mrs. Barnes was waiting, having heard the conversation. Don't take it to heart, she said. She didn't mean that. It's just pain speaking. I know, Andrew answered wearily. But it still hurts. He went down to the kitchen, sat at the table, buried his face in his palms. Everything he had fought for these past days, life, safety, justice, suddenly seemed meaningless. Yes, he was alive. Yes, Christine was punished. But at what cost? His daughter hated him. The family was destroyed. The house that had once been filled with laughter and warmth now resembled a crypt. Mrs. Barnes put a cup of hot tea in front of him. Drink. And don't blame yourself. You did the right thing. The only right thing you could do. Then why is it so hard? Because the right thing isn't always easy. But with time, Liz will understand. Children always understand. You just need to give her time. Andrew understood. Mrs. Barnes was right. Time was needed. Time for wounds to heal, for the pain to subside, for his daughter to be able to accept the truth. The following days were similar to each other. Andrew went to work, returned home, tried to establish a routine. Liz still avoided him, spoke in monosyllables, ate in silence. She went to school, did homework, but lived as if in a parallel world, closed off, detached. Andrew didn't pressure her. He was just there. Made breakfast, checked her diary, asked about grades, tried to show that he was here, that he wouldn't abandon her, no matter what. Mrs. Barnes remained the connecting link between them. She talked to Liz when she didn't want to talk to her father, comforted her when the girl cried at night, read books to her, like in childhood, baked her favorite pies. Gradually, very slowly, the ice began to thaw. One evening, a month after the trial, Liz came out to the kitchen where Andrew was washing dishes, stood in the doorway, then quietly asked, Dad, can I write Mom a letter? Andrew turned. Of course. You have the right to communicate with her if you want. But you don't mind? Liz, she's your mother. I won't forbid you from seeing or writing to her. That's your choice. Liz nodded, was silent, then added, Thank you, and went to her room. Andrew stood, watching her leave. This was a small step, but a step toward reconciliation. Liz wrote a letter to Christine, sent it through the lawyer who was handling the divorce. Yes, Andrew had filed for divorce immediately after the trial. The process was proceeding. The response came 2 weeks later. Andrew didn't read it. It was personal. But he saw how Liz cried after reading it. And then she came to him and said, Mom asks for forgiveness, says she did stupid things, that she regrets it. And do you believe her? Liz was silent. I don't know. Maybe. But even if she really regrets it, it doesn't change anything. You could have died. And I could have been left without a father. And that's scarier than anything. She hugged him. For the first time in a month and a half. Andrew held her tight, feeling his heart squeeze. His girl. His smart, strong girl. She had been through hell, but hadn't broken. I love you, honey, he whispered. I love you too, Dad. Winter gave way to spring. The divorce was finalized. Christine didn't object, Sent her consent through the lawyer. Andrew sold the old car, couldn't look at it without shuddering. Bought a new one, reliable. Began spending more time with his daughter, took her on weekends to museums, movies, parks. Liz gradually came back to life. Laughed again, joked, talked about school. Mrs. Barnes lived with them. She wasn't a servant, but a grandmother. Real, loving. One day in May, when trees were blooming outside, Liz asked, "Dad, when Mom gets out, will I have to communicate with her?" Andrew was sitting on the couch with a book. Put it aside, looked at his daughter. "That will be your decision, Liz. Only yours. I won't pressure you either way. If you want to see her, I'll arrange it. If you don't want to, I'll understand." Did you forgive her? Andrew thought. Had he forgiven Christine? For the lies, betrayal, attempted murder? "I don't know," he answered honestly. "Probably not. But I let go. I'm no longer angry at her. It's just, she's now part of the past, and my future is here, with you, with Mrs. Barnes, with our home." Liz nodded, thinking over the words, then said, "I let her go too. She's my mom, and I don't want to hate her, but trust her. I won't be able to. Never." "And that's normal," Andrew said. "You have a right to your feelings." Liz smiled, for the first time in a long time genuinely. "You know, Dad, we turned out to have a pretty good family, even without Mom." Andrew smiled back. "Yes, pretty good." A year passed, then a second. Life fell into a rhythm. Liz entered university, dreamed of becoming a pediatrician. Andrew got a promotion at work, stayed late less often, devoted more time to home. Mrs. Barnes knitted, cooked, tended the garden. They became a family. Not like before, but real. Without lies, without falseness, without fear. Sometimes Andrew thought about Christine, asked the lawyer how she was there, in the colony. He answered sparingly, "Works in a sewing production, no complaints, no violations. Lives quietly." Liz corresponded with her the first year. Then the letters became less frequent, then stopped altogether. The girl simply moved on, into her life, into her future. Andrew didn't judge her for it. Everyone deals with pain in their own way. 3.5 years after the verdict, in October, Walters called, "Mitchell, I have news. Your ex-wife will be released early in 6 months, for exemplary behavior. Wanted to warn you." Andrew was silent. "I see. Thanks for letting me know. Are you all right?" "Yes. Just unexpected." Andrew thought, sat at the table. So Christine would be out soon. In 6 months, she would be free again. What would she do? Where would she go? Would she try to meet with Liz? In the evening, he told his daughter about it. Liz was already 18. She was studying, lived at home, but had become independent. "I see," she said calmly. "Well, let her get out. Don't you want to see her?" Liz shook her head. "No. I thought about it many times, and decided I don't need it. I have you. I have Grandma Maggie. I have my life. Mom, she made her choice then, and I'm making mine now. I don't want to see her." Andrew nodded. "All right, that's your right. And you?" "I don't want to either." We close that chapter. Forever. Christine was released 6 months later. Andrew learned about it by chance. Saw a photo on social media from a mutual acquaintance. Christine was standing on the street, thin, aged, with short hair. Next to her, Glenn Brennan, also released early. So they stayed together after all. Even after all this. Andrew closed the photo and didn't look for more information. He didn't care. His life was here, in the house, with his daughter, with Mrs. Barnes. One summer evening, when the three of them were sitting on the terrace, drinking tea and watching the sunset, Liz said, "You know, I sometimes think that if you hadn't warned Dad back then, Grandma, I would have been completely alone." Mrs. Barnes smiled quietly. "I just did what I had to. Nothing special." "No," Liz objected. "You saved our family. You saved Dad. And me too. You're our angel." The old woman wiped away a tear. "Oh dear, what are you saying?" Andrew put his hand on Mrs. Barnes's shoulder. "Liz is right. You saved us, and we're forever grateful to you." They sat like that, the three of them. Life went on. Ordinary, simple, real. And in this silence after the storm, they found what they had lost once. Peace. Not loud happiness with fireworks and promises of eternal love, but something more valuable. Certainty about tomorrow. Certainty that in the morning they would wake up safe, that no one was making plans against them, that home remained home, not a battlefield. Andrew learned to live in a new way. He no longer chased the ideal of family, didn't try to create a picture for others. He simply lived, honestly, openly, with those people who turned out to be nearby and were real. Work stopped being a refuge from problems and became just work. Home stopped being a place where he needed to pretend and became a place where he could be himself. Liz grew up strong, not embittered, not broken, strong. She learned to distinguish real from fake, love from manipulation, family from the appearance of family. The experience she went through didn't destroy her, it tempered her. She now knew that life could be cruel, that people were capable of betrayal, but she also knew something else, that there were always those who would stay by her side. There was always light, even in the darkest night, and Mrs. Barnes received what she hadn't even dared to dream about when she stood at the building entrance with a cardboard sign in her hands, a real family. Not employers, not strangers with whom she simply shared a roof, but relatives. Liz called her grandmother, Andrew, part of the family, and this was truth, without any reservations. They sat on the terrace, and the silence was not oppressive, but healing. There was no unspoken tension in it, no fear, no lies. Only the calm of people who had survived a storm and come ashore.